I think what's really great about Toronto is that we actually have the opportunity to, as a city, move forward with in our environmental practices and do it in such a way that could potentially influence the way that the rest of the country is actually dealing with their own environmental issues. So we're really pleased to have this green screen session today. As far as climate change and environmentally sound practices are concerned, I believe that at this point you're either in or you're out. And at this point, we don't really have time to argue about whether climate change is happening or not. The proof is kind of around us. As you look around, you can see what's reported in the news every day about different shifts in weather. I won't even go into all of those things. So I think it's important that we join together to change our practices and make a difference. So first of all, I'd like to thank Eric Jensen and the City of Toronto, as well as John Galway and Alan Bacchus of the Harold Greenberg Fund for supporting this morning's session. And before we start this discussion, I'd like to give recognition to the origins of today's Green Screen session. It was funded, the Green Screen program was funded and developed through the Cluster Fund, a very famous fund that the Ontario Media Development Corporation presented, I believe, in 2007. And without that fund, this Green Screen initiative would not exist. There were 17 original partners involved in the development of the program, and I would like to formally recognize their contributions and support. So these are the organizations. ACTRA's, Toronto Performers, and I want to thank Mr. David Sparrow, who's here. We have EP Canada, Canada Film Capital, Canadian Media Production Association, which is a CMPA, Cinespace, ComWeb, and William F. White International. We have Deluxe, the Directors Guild of Canada, the Ontario Division, Film Ontario, IATSE, NABIT, the Ontario Media Development Corporation, of course, Panavision Canada Corporation, Pinewood Toronto Studios, PS Production Services, and Stargazing, as well as, of course, the Toronto Film and Television Office at the City of Toronto. So before we begin, I think it's very important to recognize that that group of organizations spent a lot of time and energy developing the Green Screen program. And I'd like to introduce to you Martin Harbury, who is the film and television consultant at the Ontario Media Development Corporation, who will actually provide a really interesting history of this event, or this session.
Good morning. We used to call it the Partnerships Fund, and Dawn reminded me that it was known as the Cluster Fund. We didn't always call it the Cluster Fund, but it was a very complicated fund, the most complicated fund we ran, actually, because I generally run the Feature Film Fund, and in running that, I'm comparing films with films. With the Cluster Fund, we were comparing apples with bananas and frequently with ugly fruit. But it was a very complicated fund to run. This was one of my favorite initiatives that came through the fund, and it came through quite early. And it was a no-brainer. It's something that should have happened and should be happening, I think, at a much greater level than it currently is. It's truly important that we recognize where we stand with things, where we're going with things, and that the film industry, which is such a huge part of the province and the city, and again, this looks like being apparently the best year since pre-SARS, and immediately pre-SARS, there were some 40 productions happening at any given time. And this looks like being a very good year. So the more that can be done to continue and build this initiative, the more should be done. Because when we were thrashing this out, it was a process of more than 2 years with all those different interest groups involved. And there were so many different ideas, so many different factions, and one of the biggest stumbling blocks, and I sort of throw this out as a cautionary note, was that a lot of people wanted to come up with a certification to be able to certify productions and say, this one is the most green production. And there is a danger in that. And a lot of people, I think, I'm just passing on a bit of my personal history and what I learned during this process. A lot of people object to that and feel that that is a problem. So I'm thrilled that Dawn, that the Planet in Focus is re-energizing this program. And I think whatever can be done to make current practices, best practices available to everybody in the industry and to encourage the use of best practices, that's certainly the best starting point. And where you go from there, I think it's only up, and it's terrific. And I wish you all the best with it.
What we'll do is we'll hear from each of our speakers briefly about certain issues, and then we're going to open this up for a real collaborative discussion about best practices in Toronto, and we're trying to find a way forward.
So I'm from the Harold Greenberg Fund, and we're a national funding organization supported by the Movie Network and Viewers' Choice Canada. And we have a number of programs from development funding, production funding, and in particular, in this case, is an industry initiatives program, which is a wide-ranging program where we help film festivals, organizations promote film in Canada. And in this particular case, we're a supporter of the Planet in Focus Film Festival and the Green Screen Award, which I'll speak about in a bit. And so part of this fund is that we're encouraging filmmakers, film professionals to educate themselves and further train themselves. And in supporting this festival and the Green Screen Award, it's part of educating filmmakers and producers and whatnot into environmentally conscious practices on set and in production offices. And historically, film production has been can be a wasteful process. And so, this is just one aspect of helping encouraging filmmakers to be conscious on set. And so we have a Green Screen Award that we sponsor. It's a $5,000 prize, so to speak, for Canadian productions with the most inspiring going green stories. So on the Planet in Focus website, there's some guidelines you can look up, and we have a deadline of August 30th. So we're looking for productions ranging from documentary, feature films, television series, short films, music videos, all kinds. And no matter how big, no matter how small, we're looking for the most inspiring stories. So previous winners have traditionally been the bigger productions. So Score, a hockey musical, was a winner a couple years ago, and Warehouse 13, a television series shot here, was last year's winner. But even those are big shows, and the environmentally friendly practices they can have a bigger impact because they're bigger shows. Even smaller productions can have an impact as well. So we encourage everyone to apply and be inspiring in how you want to tell us what you've done to green your production. Greening your production could be anything from going paperless in a production office, or going paperless with production reports or call sheets. Not using disposable water bottles or styrofoam cups. Maybe even using hybrid production vehicles, or encouraging crew to use transit. So it could be anything, and very, very easy to do. It isn't necessarily a cost prohibitive endeavor. It's just being creative in how you be environmentally conscious. So we encourage that with everybody. So tell us your stories and submit online, and maybe you can win $5,000. There's a runner-up prize of $1,000 as well, but of course it's really not about winning the money. It's about encouraging filmmakers all across Canada to be conscious of how they of how they act on set, and encouraging all other crew to act the same, and to position Canada as a leader in environmentally conscious production. So tell all your friends, filmmakers, and all kinds of productions to submit and apply and spread the word. So.
I really have to begin by thanking NBC Universal. They're deeply committed to environmental responsibility for their productions around the world, and they've totally supported us in every endeavor that we undertake toward sustainability. Season 2, we did win an award. The Environmental Media Association gave us an EMA seal for solid sustainable practices. So the Americans do give out awards for that. But really, they were surprised when they came up first at how we recycle in this city, how they were astounded at our green bins and amazed that to them that was really progressive, and it is progressive. So everything really had to start in the production office. Film production is all about the paperwork, the communication, as you mentioned, schedules, call sheets, scripts. The industry must have destroyed thousands of trees in the last years. Thankfully, the digital age appeared, and we were able to now definitely transmit most of our paperwork via the internet. We still have to print scripts and all of that stuff. We need the physical thing in hand. But we now know that we're buying recycled paper and that paper will be recycled again. We never really knew before where our paper was being taken. They said it was being recycled, but we weren't sure. So that's a given and a sure thing. The departments that build the sets are also fully active in responsible practices. The construction department only uses companies that place an emphasis on recycling. All of our toxic wastes, such as paint, are disposed of by specialized hazard disposal companies. And the materials we use to build the sets are constantly reused to avoid buying new product wherever we can. There's a very popular wood that we use in construction called, my pronunciation, Lawan. It's basically a plywood made of rainforest wood, trees, many of them put together. It's a flexible, hardwood that appears to look like mahogany, but it's easily cut. The rainforests in the past have been raped of their rainforest trees to provide Lawan. It's popular in construction business as well. So for the first time this year, we're tracking the origins of the Lawan we're buying. We want to ensure it comes from responsibly managed farms, and we want to improve the supply chain by tracking and figuring out who's selling, who's distributing, and there are responsible companies doing it. There's just not that many in Southeast Asia. There's a lot that are not. But we all feel that if we begin tracking it now, raise the questions, probe the companies that are bringing it in, and start to go back to find out where it's coming from, we can use it with good conscience. The one thing we have been guilty of in the film industry is huge, massive fuel emissions. When we take our on-location fleet downtown, we can have up to 20 large vehicles, traveling from our stages up north down to the city. We do use shuttles to minimize crew taking auxiliary vehicles. People often ride bikes because it's a downtown location, but the fact is those big trucks are going crazy. But now our accounting department is starting to track fuel usage so that we can start to understand further opportunities to reduce our energy and carbon emission. We're trying. It's a big one. When we are on our stages shooting, it's much easier to be mindful of things. We have recycling bins, as I mentioned, organic, paper, bottle, garbage. On every stage in the commissary, we have installed water coolers on every possible area. We've distributed water bottles to the crew, recyclable water bottles. So we've pretty much eliminated the water bottle situation, except for on location with cast. We do need to provide, we have to keep people hydrated. But that's been a really successful program to reduce that. We've also begun to donate our leftover food from our catered lunches. So this year we forged a relationship with Second Harvest, and to date we've served over 770 meals to the hungry in Toronto, which is really pleasing.
fantastic.
It's really great. It wasn't really possible to do that. There was so many liabilities of food poisoning, and everybody was nervous, but we've managed to do a deal with NBC, and it's all on paper, and we have freezers, and it's really great. So that's happening. It's really an ongoing process. I feel proud to say that most of us are pretty aware and trying our best. It's really a great feeling to know that this huge filmmaking machine can actually make a difference without changing the end game, which really is entertainment. I mean, we can do them both easily, and so ongoing. It's going to take a while, but we're there. We're getting there, I think.
In a broader context, we do help other organizations become more sustainable. But what does that really mean, right? We tend to focus on greenhouse gas emissions for several reasons, and I'll come back to those. But in our field, sustainability professionals, they often like to call themselves sustainability experts. And that's something I like to caution against. If something is sustainable, it's innovative. And it's tough to be an expert in something that hasn't been done yet or been produced, whatever it is. So as a sustainability professional, you take the best practices that we're learning about today, adapt them to your needs, and then you have to go slightly outside of your comfort level to get to that point of innovation. That's something we like to push for a lot of our clients. Getting back to greenhouse gas emissions or carbon footprint, there's three reasons why we look at that so intensely, aside from the fact that our clients want us to. One is that it's a universal metric. There's a carbon footprint from everything, from the waste that's going to the recycling stream or to landfill. There's a carbon footprint from that, from travel, from even water. It has to get treated and pumped to us using energy. So carbon footprint from everything, and we can attach a universal metric to it. You can't measure or you can't manage what you don't measure. That old adage comes into play. The other one is that climate change is a defining challenge of our time. Don put it well in the beginning, and President Obama put it really well last week when he said we don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. We just need to get to work, right? And the third is about 6 months ago, I went to an event where Paul Hawken was speaking. I'm not sure if anyone knows of Paul Hawken, but he's kind of seen as the forefather for modern sustainability. And he wrote a book called The Ecology of Commerce. This is something that's been used by a lot of sustainability professionals, industrialists, and they've been able to integrate some of the things Paul talks about in his book. But Paul Hawken is highly regarded in our world, and he said that climate or the metric of carbon emissions aren't the elephant in the room, it's the entire room. So the third reason we look at greenhouse gas emissions is because Paul Hawken said so. Now, I understand today we're a little bit preaching to the converted in terms of sustainability, so I don't need to talk about the financial benefits that come with using less stuff, using less resources, using less energy. I probably don't need to talk about how it's attractive for a lot of people to work for green companies, green organizations, so much so that almost 60% of post-secondary students will take a 15% pay cut to work for organizations with similar values to their own. Right? There's a lot going here. I probably don't need to talk about the risk around not being green either. People like to choose. I think it's 90+% of Canadians, when faced with comparable products, will choose a green product. Right? The risk of not being green is that you won't be chosen. There's not really a risk of being too green. No one ever says, I'm not going to support that organization. They care too much about the environment, right? And then there's marketing opportunities that go along with it as well. We've seen greenwashing for sure, but the right way to do it is to do things right, to create the story and then tell the story. So I'm actually really interested to hear more of the discussion today so I can learn a little bit, because I don't have any experience in sustainability as it applies to the film industry. some of the things that we've seen and learned from our clients along the way can be as basic as looking at the carbon footprint from a facility, right? Something pretty easy for us to do, and then it tends to get a little bit more complicated as you branch outwards. When you look at the impact from paper, any materials, commuting tends to be a very significant one. A lot of businesses don't realize that their largest impact is likely from commuting, which is a tough one because you can't really enforce that. You can't tell people how to get from point A to point B. You can only incentivize it or be persuasive in some way. We find that a number of our clients, including this one that I'm just about to talk about, are looking at the risk aversion side of things. So a nonprofit, a national nonprofit that we work with, they have about 15 to 20 programs every year that they run to promote consumer products, consumer green, quote unquote, products. And these programs take administrative overhead. They're run through offices. They send people on the road to do promotions. They have swag for it. There's an environmental impact to put these programs on. So what they've done is come to us and say, can you look at our carbon footprint around this? Are we having a net benefit? And the lesson to be learned here is that, again, you can't manage what you don't measure. What is the net improvement? It turns out the net improvement is substantial, but those numbers they can now take to their funders. As a nonprofit, they can say, look at the good we're doing. Yes, we're delivering the program, but we have the numbers to back it up. I had several other examples, but I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit because I know we're on a tight leash today, right, Don? So another example that I want to bring up is Niagara College, a client of ours out in the Niagara region. They have 2 facilities online now that are quote unquote carbon neutral, and for a long time we had some challenges in getting them to look at their carbon footprint. And I speak with 2 hats at this point because I also lecture part-time at Niagara College. So we were trying to get them to look at the impact of carbon, not just environmentally, but financially also. We had to kind of gear our conversation to those that were making the decisions, and the financial metrics seemed to make sense. So, there is a point in Ontario where we'll likely have a price on carbon, i.e. cap and trade. Under our current administration, it looks like it's an inevitability. Now, what we did was we said, okay, if the price of carbon is X dollars, this is what it's going to cost you unless you start reducing. So we were able to get them to internalize the price of carbon and also put it into curriculum. So there's now students learning about these things on site in the facilities that are carbon neutral. So looking for those other wins around sustainability are huge co-benefits that we try to find for our clients. Now, whether you're a commercial office, academic institution, a taxi company, film production, whatever it is, there's a broad approach that we like to put forward, and it starts with engaging those that are involved, because it's awfully hard to move something forward if you don't have buy-in. Measure. That measurement will serve as the baseline to benchmark against as you move forward. Decide what the main risks and opportunities are after you measure. This will give you a good idea. Choose targets and timelines, and then get to work. Again, I want to underscore measurement as I close out. There's the old adage that I've mentioned once or twice here: you can't manage what you don't measure. But there's a much better one that I like. It comes out of the UPS boardroom, United Parcel Service. They're huge on sustainability, and it's "In God we trust, everything else we measure." And with that, I look forward to learning a little bit more today.
Thank you for inviting me back into this group. It was 5 years ago that I was involved. Excuse me. And I gave some workshops at the festival. I helped launch Melissa into some of her studies. And the publications that she's created are quite remarkable. I remember one of the discussions, John Eckert mentioned that he'd spent $50,000 on bottled water. And I made a suggestion at that time, and I don't know if there's any link here, but why not use stainless steel bottles? You could emboss the production's logo on it. So I'm glad to hear that they're using bottles. Another suggestion I've made kind of off the cuff is to use older things, including occasionally older people, keep things in balance. We have seen a lot of changes in just 5 years. We're no longer shooting film for the most part. The labs are closed, no chemicals, etc. So just going to touch on a few areas where technology is helping us get a bit greener. This includes cameras, low-power lights, batteries, portable mobile devices. We're dealing with, 1, tools of the trade that use less energy or facilitate production efficiency. 2, using less stuff that is not particularly eco-friendly while maintaining or improving overall production value and efficiency. And 3, issues beyond tools and stuff, which include people, education, and communication attitudes. In almost all cases, if production personnel put their heads together and plan properly, they can most certainly arrive at solutions which result in less waste and save money as well. Most cameras now capture on SD cards, compact flash cards, and digital magazines, all of which can be reused thousands of times, providing that you have lots of hard drives and data wranglers to keep the data safe and organized. And the cameras range in price from a few thousand to 80,000 tops. The lower priced cameras, of course, can help small independent filmmakers take on longer shoots and avoid running up rental costs. Some of the features of the greener camera is that they have a sensor the same size as the 35mm film, meaning they can utilize existing lenses, matte boxes, follow focus supports, etc., previously used on film cameras, and generally use smaller, longer lasting batteries, meaning fewer stoppages for battery or magazine changes. And there's no need to spend time checking the gate for scratches or dust at the end of every setup. The other big issue that sort of transitions into considerations of lighting is that most of these cameras also have higher sensitivity, with only marginal loss in quality. Some can literally shoot in candlelight. However, please don't hand your DOP a box of candles and expect to deliver consistently happy images. If you are involved in lighting budget discussions, please talk to the DP, listen, and try to understand each other. He or she will invariably explain that they need the same number of lights, but can use smaller powered fixtures, still saving money, but not sacrificing production value. These are important distinctions. The new LED fixtures are notable for durability and lower power draw. The best example of implementing these on a larger scale is Brad Dixon, lead lighting director at the CBC. If you watched the Beijing Olympics, you saw the first 100% LED lit studio anywhere. Since then, many other networks have followed this trend. ESPN, BBC, the White House press gallery is lit by LEDs. CBC is retrofitting all of the new studios across Canada with LED fixtures. Interestingly, Brad relates that in spite of the George Stroumboulopoulos Million Acts of Green, there was no particular interest by the CBC bean counters in being eco-friendly. They were just interested in saving money from reduced energy bills for lights, AC, and the rebates they got from Toronto Hydro, which apparently enabled them to recoup their investment within a couple of years. At the opposite end of the LED scale are the small camera-mounted lights, most of which are powered by a couple of AA's or similar batteries. These are a boon to news and documentary shooters. But please, if you are using small batteries on sound recorders, microphones, intercoms, monitors, use rechargeables. The cost of a charger and good quality batteries can be recouped in months, and you'll be able to use them for years. High-end notebooks, MacBooks have helped revolutionize budgeting, scheduling, not to mention on-site and location editing. And now that everybody has a smartphone or a tablet, I think we can probably find more ways to eliminate paper-based functions. There are many apps available which are used on set. Unfortunately, most of them for the iPad, and I have a playbook, so it'll take a few years for that. Just one little feature that I've been anticipating or suggesting for a couple of years is cameras equipped with Wi-Fi so that you can pick up the signal from the sensor and literally have a handheld monitor. It's happening in some areas. And last but not least, we've all heard the phrase, talk is cheap, usually with pejorative connotations. I would like to suggest a more positive spin on this. Talk is really important. If you are a producer or a manager, it's important to understand the needs of each department. Carrying on this dialogue is the best way to maintain or maximize production value from available resources. And since it's about saving energy, let's recognize that one of the most abundant forms of energy is human energy in the form of optimism, and it's free. Optimism improves your health and outlook and is also contagious. It's been studied in clinical tests at UCLA by Dr. Norman Cousins and others who've determined that a positive attitude actually affects body physiology for the better, making you happier, healthier, and results in less need for pharmaceuticals and psychiatrists. It's like a miracle, free miracle drug that is a win-win and a no-brainer, and it also helps your brain. And you can't get much more eco-friendly than that.
Our involvement with this, I guess, was kind of rekindled by our discussion about Planet in Focus as a festival. And then we began exploring other work that had been done, and it's clear from the discussion that there have been considerable industry partners involved with this, but that the dialogue seemed to have kind of fallen off the table a little. So I wanted to get it back on the table. It's something that we're keenly interested in at the City of Toronto. I was at a extended senior management team meeting a week and a half ago, and we were talking about operationalizing the new City of Toronto strategic plan. And one of the four cornerstone aspects of it is environmental sustainability. It's there for every single city division. It's supposed to be a theme through everything that we do as an organization. So, from our end in economic development and with the film office, we're going to look at every option and every opportunity that we have to enhance the sustainability of this, particularly from an environmental perspective. We look at filming that takes place in our neighborhoods, and there's impacts on the residents and on the businesses and on the city as a whole. And there's a lot of different ways that we can, minimize that, and it promotes the very sustainability of the industry, but the environmental sustainability of our city and of our neighborhoods, and these are key. So to that end, we've begun discussion again with our partners at Solid Waste, and we'll be coming forward with some strategies through Solid Waste, geared specifically to the film industry, about ways that we can reduce or divert from landfill more with solid waste input. So the very folks that do the collection and the recycling. We're working actively with Toronto Hydro to try and facilitate more, we call them temporary hydro service or power drops, to reduce the need for diesel-powered jennies, which then reduces the diesel emission and also the noise, particularly for late-night filming in our neighborhoods. That's the number one complaint we get when we're filming late night in residential, is the smell and the noise of the jenny. So why wouldn't we want to find a way to take that out of the equation? We're working with the Toronto Environment and Energy Office, who've been a partner with this previously. We're going to get them more involved so they can understand more about what actually happens on set and on location. And then they'll be able to apply initiatives that they have to try and assist in enhancing what we do. Little things like you were talking about reducing, paper. We've stopped producing hard copies of the production guide or most of the other information. Was at the Locations trade show in Los Angeles last week, and everything we handed out was on a USB key. It also avoids us carrying hundreds of pounds of paper with us. It's better all around. you know, we're working with the DGC. I was talking to Bill Skolnick and Luis Mendoza from the Location Managers Caucus about different ways that we can get that group engaged in reducing the size of production on street, reducing the number of vehicles that have to come downtown. We're squeezed in a lot of different ways with respect to availability of parking given development, but also, you know, you get the net environmental benefit of having fewer vehicles on the road. And just organizing them better. So there's a lot of discussion that's happening. We were, you know, kind of using, I think, today's event as a jumping off point for reinvigorating the discussion, and there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we're all excited about the possibility and where we want this to go. So.